chairperson of the community committee. Who have we got? We've got Mr. Aitken, and we have a decision to make on the Aranui Community Centre rebuild final approval. So I presume that Councillor East wants to move that motion. Yep, and would the chair of the community committee like to second the motion? No, we're going to proceed. I've had a long conversation with various people, but I'll explain in a minute. Yep. So, yeah, I won't mention the spelling mistakes either. So it's just, but it's there are a few questions that I have. So first of all, I'd like to talk about why that Wainoni Aranui Family Centre would only have insurance proceeds of $35,900.
We're in dispute with the insurer over this. In fact, just prior to this meeting, and we're getting further confirmed, their belief is that it's not a total write-off. There is some dispute around whether some of the problems we see with the building are actually earthquake damage. I think the insurer believes that they are the way it was built in the first place, and therefore they're not liable to pay for it. So we remain in dispute with the insurer over the extent of the payment.
Is it repairable?
The insurer believes it is. We believe it's a total loss.
So what if it were repairable? What if it is repairable?
Even if it were repairable, the recommendation coming forward is that we would still demolish it, take what we could get from the insurer and proceed with the project as it is.
When this was originally when this was originally thought through, though, there was an expectation that there would be more than $35,900 for the Wainoni Aranui Family Centre.
Yes, that's correct.
So what figure did you have in that box before you wrote in $35,900 minimum?
I can't remember. Sorry, we're struggling to remember. Oh, Matt.
I don't have the exact figure on me, but it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially 200,000, something in that sort of range.
So hold on, you don't have the insured value?
There's a total sum insured and an indemnity, but the insurers don't believe that the level of damage will get up to the indemnity value.
You know, but what is that value?
It's in the report.
I mean, that's a basic piece of information.
Sorry, the original report that had all of that detail and was here in October, November. This was a follow-up report on site, so
Somebody must
we do have that somewhere.
This one here. That's the original. Oh. It's just the minutes, sorry.
Sorry, we don't have that original report with us, but we can.
I guess the problem is we're constantly being brought these processes without the insurance being resolved, and if we're planning to go ahead, we need to know the potential loss that we're taking by doing that.
Can I just add to that too? To me, that is an absolutely key figure, and nowhere in 5.1, which lists funding sources, and in any of the documentation that we got in the community committee, which quite clearly laid out what the full sum insured was, what the indemnity value was, and what was being sought. That information isn't included in here, and I can't endorse more what Councillor Manji is saying. It's a pretty basic bit of information. that we should have. Can I just ask a question too? The dispute with regards to total loss and the insurer saying it's not a total loss, who has provided the information on the council's behalf to support the contention that it is a total loss?
Council staff have commissioned consultants Opus to undertake a damage assessment for this building. And Opus have reviewed the damage and provided us with the reports, which we submitted on and passed on to the insurers.
Okay, and the Opus, they are what, engineers?
Yep.
So it's an engineer.
Professional engineers, that's right.
Right,
Yep.
okay. All right.
Yep.
In terms of the funding source of nearly $4 million from the Council Building and Infrastructure Improvement Fund, that one, how much does that leave in that fund, and has that fund yet been prioritised?
Darren? Cast of thousands.
Right.
Last time I looked, Darren Moses, there was $52 million in the betterment fund. This would draw down obviously $4 million from that.
When did you last look?
For the annual plan workshop 2 weeks ago, I think that was. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So we're now down to 40 something. Have we actually done the prioritisation, recognising that the provincial council chambers, our city and various other non-negotiable items that need to be repaired probably have to come out of that fund?
No, we haven't. That's an outstanding item for reprioritisation of the program to get your new priorities for allocation. This obviously being in the top 5, I would argue, currently visible projects. Is that in the top 30? I'd have to think. Look, I'm not sure this is in the previous council's top 30.
If I can help, I had a look on the top 30 just to see if I could get that information about insurance coverage, and I couldn't see it in there. And then, of course, it wasn't listed in the heritage ones either. So I would suggest it's not in the top 30 because I couldn't find it in that committee
That's
list.
correct, yes.
When is that coming to Wāhine Committee to do that priority exercise? Does anyone know?
So it's my understanding staff are working through looking at collating the information that we need, and that should be happening within the next month.
And will there be any money you think about?
Yes, but I think, we need to be aware that we will have pressures on our funding, and this project has been, has external parties involved, hence that's why it has come sooner than the top 30. And I have to say, given the funding shortfalls that we face across the city, where we've got external people making significant contributions, we should welcome that. And so, I think it's really important to resolve our insurance issues, but also it's important to get progress in local communities.
Yes, I understand the theory. Can I just get any sort of sense of repair value on something as basic as the provincial council chambers?
Can we not do that now? I mean, seriously, it's that is. I mean,
I'm just
we've
aware
already
that we've now
approved
got
the payment of the money. It's been through an earlier council meeting. The report, and I don't want to sort of kind of make a point in front of staff again, but it's really helpful when reports come to council that they refer to when the previous decision was made and what that decision was, because it enables us to see at a glance where the process is up to, and the fact that we are now simply going the next stage. And I did think when I'd read the report that it was a reference back. It was approving something that actually has already been approved. So I didn't realise that, which is why I was going to defer it for a couple of weeks, giving pressures on our time today. But I don't think that we've got the ability to do that. And I want to pick up on what Yanni just said, and that is that we have two major significant community external contributors, Lions International of 450,000, which I believe is their single greatest contribution in the post-earthquake environment, and I want to publicly place on record how grateful we are as a council for that external support, and also the Canterbury Earthquake Appeal Trust with a total of $1 million, but knowing that $500,000 of that has come from one donor with a specific interest in supporting the East. And, so I know that the East has been, felt in many respects that they've been the hardest hit and often the last to receive attention. So I do understand the imperative around this, but we are looking at, $4 million out of a fund and seeing in graphic detail what that looks like in comparison with what the insurance payout could be as low as. Yeah, Ali.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make sure that I have this correct. In 5.2, it talks about the insurance proceeds currently estimated at 35.9. It goes into the issues of the council waiting for many months, which of course we've heard ad nauseum over the last couple of weeks. I'm concerned that it mentions here that there'll be a demolition of the Wainoni Aranui Family Centre, because that... Now, if you are in dispute with the insurance company as to the position of the claim, whether it's a total loss or not, how can you advance this project with that still being in dispute?
It's a good point. We're trying to get something in writing from the insurers which states that possession of the building is academic at this point. And in council's position, we've got essentially all of the evidence on file now required to present our claim. The loss adjusters on behalf of Civic Assurance have done a similar thing using a company called Spire. So both parties have in effect gathered the engineering evidence to form the basis of claim and rebuttal. And we are waiting for something that says we can progress to continue to have the insurance debate, if you like, in lieu of the actual physical evidence still being in place.
Thank you. Just one other question. At what point, and I'm talking about time frame, when did you from Opus get the report saying that it was a loss? And when did the insurance company then, I imagine they counted, or it could have been the other way around? I'm just trying to get an idea of time frame.
Oh, this thing's been going on for about 12 months now.
So, okay, all right, I'm going to leave it there.
Okay, just to, I've actually found the number.
903,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got that?
I just got it now, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for the actual decision that was made. Thank you. Okay, so the reason that I'm having trouble remembering the decision that council made was that this council didn't make the decision. It was made on the 3rd of October 2013. So, it's I got the impression from you, Mr. Aitken, that this had come before council in October, November. So, yeah, that's right. So it's been, what was endorsed in principle was the rebuild, subject to the confirmation of collaborative funding partnerships, the allocation of up to 3.9 from the council's infrastructure and facilities betterment allowance to fund, seek other potential external funding partnerships towards the building of a combined facility. Note that adopting the recommendations does not mean council is accepting an insurance settlement for the assets, the site and funding arrangements to be reported back to the council for final approval. So, so it looks as if that's subject to the confirmation of collaborative funding partnerships, the allocation, and seeking other potential external funding partnerships was unsuccessful. Is that right? So you looked for other external funding partnerships?
Yes, that's right.
So who else did you approach?
Gary.
I'll just introduce myself. Gary Watson. I'm the Strength and Communities Manager for the east side of the city. We spoke to Fire Service. We had 3 meetings with the Ministry of Education around their side and around what we could do there. Unfortunately, March, May and July we spoke. There'd been no decision made about the Aranui hub. We went to the Community Board on the 2nd of September and then to Council on the 3rd of October. So the timings weren't great. The feelers that went out around external funders was the community was prepared to raise some money for, I guess, improvements once the building was there, climbing walls, etc., should that be a need. But we couldn't find any other external funders. We had 2 major. That's where we got.
Did you go to the Community Trust?
No, we didn't go to the Community Trust.
Do we have the ability to do that as a council? Are we excluded from them?
No.
Well, given the extent of it, what we asked on the 3rd of October was that we seek other potential external funding partnerships towards the building of a combined Aranui community facility. So that was the signal, I think, from the previous council to find others who might contribute, which would lower the call on the fund that has, a limited life. So, in terms of the site of this, I've expressed my frustration before about the decision of council to put the library where they did, because this could have been the library and a community facility all in one. But unfortunately, I guess we didn't crystal ball gaze enough. And I just... So I want this to proceed, but on the basis that actually that we still look for external funding, so that we restate this part of the resolution, continue to seek other potential external funding partnerships. That doesn't stop you from proceeding, but look elsewhere as well, because it may be in that context that you find some even further improvements that could be done. I'm also concerned that probably built into these costs, and again, I wasn't at the original council meeting that looked at these things, but I presume that there's some uncertainty around foundation costs. So I'd like to think that if there is a way of building that building that minimises those, there are a lot of sunk costs going into the ground that we would rather be spending up above, and the riprap foundation and light building options are obviously something that need to be taken into account. So the up to is very much the up to figure rather than the final figure.
Of 3.9 million from that previous October 3rd resolution.
What it said was, it was an
clause 3 in your
endorsement from
report.
it said, subject to the confirmation of collaborative funding partnerships, the allocation of up to 3.919197 from the council's infrastructure and facilities betterment allowance to fund a combined Aranui community facility.
So can I just ask then, given that allocation of funding was made on October the 3rd, has that already come out of that fund?
Yeah, I think so.
Out of the balance of the fund. That's a good question. Darren, do you know?
Thank you.
Sorry, Darren doesn't know. We can find out.
It says in the document that it's been drawn down.
It definitely should have been, because this gives it approval to come out, so it should have been taken out of that balance.
Excuse me, Leanne, could I just add something that I don't know whether I can add this as an amendment? I had to say I'm still...
5.5, sorry, 5.5 states a drawdown has been
Yes,
approved
it has been
and processed.
committed. Just had it confirmed, it has been committed out of the fund already. So it will be, the balance that you have will already include this money having come out.
So it's not in the fund now.
Not in the fund now.
But any underspend on that will be returned to the fund.
Correct. Or any improvement in the insurance position from where we are now, which we are hopeful of, but there is a fight to have.
And another funder coming to the party.
If we can,
Yeah.
yes. The funding, the collaborative funding partnerships were focused more on could we share the facility with somebody else, like another provider, was a way of moving forward. It was back in October, that was the thrust rather than cash, but we can certainly go and have a look at the community trust.
Yep. Kelly?
I just wonder whether we should really consider the position legally. On just as a suggestion, point 6.1. It's recommended the Community Committee agrees that staff progress with the detailed design, that staff progress on the proviso that the insurer confirms in writing that the building can be demolished with no effect on the insurance claim. And I think that's also got to be approved and agreed to by a legal advisor.
That's really the demolition question. So 6.2 could it be amended? Approve the asset owner initiated demolition of the Wainoni owner subject to
Confirmation from the insurer.
Well, no, you could start the sentence subject to.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Subject to confirmation of the. I don't know. It's the agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Subject to confirmation that the.
That the
It's got to be confirmation from the
the
insurer.
building no longer needs to be
confirmation
retained.
from the insurer
That the building no longer needs to be retained to resolve any outstanding issues.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we need legal approval of that, or is that correct enough in its?
I think confirmation.
I think that'll be
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
And we've done this before with the insurer. You get a very explicit statement or not.
So if we can take out the words that, the in the first line, yeah. No, the first line of the 6.2, yeah. So subject to confirmation from the insurer that the building,
Confirmation from the insurer, no.
yeah,
That the building.
that the building
No longer.
no longer needs to be retained to
Resolve any
resolve
outstanding
insurance issues. Comma, and then a little a. Very good. Right, so is there any discussion on this? Yanni?
Thank you. Look, I know it's really frustrating sorting out the insurance stuff. You just need to look through the community facilities report and just see the lack of responsiveness, if you like. But as I said earlier, this is a project that came from the community, that external people were offering to make significant contributions to, and I do feel it's important that we do get on and see this project implemented. I did have some questions of staff around whether they've considered things like service centres and community board meeting rooms as well. It just seems kind of a little bit odd to me. We didn't do that for the library, but possibly if you think about the Bird Pegasus board, I hope that there's scope as we progress to consider whether we might like to add any sort of council services from this building. And obviously we need to be aware of the operational costs ongoing. But I support this. I just think we have to get progress in the city. We can't wait for our insurer, unfortunately. We've been incredibly patient, but there comes a time when you actually need to make decisions and get things happening. So thank you to the external parties that have offered the significant contributions. I hope we can possibly approach others. That was always the intent from the 3rd of October. But I do think it's important today that we send a signal that whether we support this project or not, and I personally do support it. I think it will be a project that will serve as a catalyst for this wider area with a significant amount of change that's happening post-earthquake to provide some real positive benefits to a local community that has been through a lot. So I look forward to this happening, and I look forward to working with the local community around getting it used on a regular basis to, as I said, provide many of those positive benefits that come from having a combined community centre.
David East.
Thank you. I'd just like to endorse Yanni's comments and say this is a very positive step forward for the eastern suburbs and the areas of Aranui particularly and adjoining suburbs of Wainoni and Dallington that have suffered quite badly. And I just urge councillors to support this move and give some some hope and encouragement for the eastern suburbs in their endeavours to move forward.
Got to say what the previous. Right, well, as a former representative of the area, I am going to say that I'm delighted that it's finally coming to fruition. I think this part of our community has suffered a lot, and you know, the need to get on with it, you know, is very important. But I do think it's important that we look to as much external support that we can. It isn't a good environment with our insurance being in the state that it's in, and we as a council have taken a you know, pretty firm hold of the issue and driving the settlement of that claim and a proper governance role for our council in that regard. But it, you know, it is very, very important that, you know, we focus on as much as that we can draw into these communities, so that they don't act as a barrier to us expanding our reach into these communities in the future. So, yeah, I think we always have to be mindful of the bigger picture when we make decisions, and I'll just put in my 2 cents worth again about the library. If it had been just held back for a few months, we would have known that we would have been looking at a better location for it. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda